So let's get into more detail about the structure of these blood vessels. First, the most important, artery wall. Let's see, arterial wall looks like this, and this inside is where blood flows. So that's called lumen, and the lining of this wall is called endothelium. You can see here, and endothelium always sits on basement membrane. Okay, and so that's called intima. So it's inside, so it's tunica intima. And there's a middle part called tunica media and external part, tunica externa. And let's compare artery and vein one by one. So this left part is arterial blood vessel, right part is venous blood vessel. So tunica interna or intima. So this word, like we have three types, intima, media, adventitia. So that's how it works. And this tunica intima or interna contains endothelium cells. Both has endothelium, and endothelium should be sit on the basement membrane. And while you can see this elastic lamina exists in the artery while not vein. So artery should be more elastic, vessel. And then you can see tunica media. So media contains smooth muscle. You can see artery has much more thicker smooth muscle cell because it has to endure this pressure, high pressure and high flow. And also there's another elastic lamina which doesn't exist in the vein. And adventitia, which is outside of the vessel, outer side part, contains a lot of collagen. So that's here. And the business end of this blood system is eventually a capillary where real exchange via diffusion is happening. And here is the simplest form of capillary. You can see one single layer of endothelium and that sits on basement membrane. However, I have to say this is too simplified. This capillary also has a pericyte, which is involved in a lot of vein capillary functions. There's also sometimes smooth muscle cells at the arterial side and some part of the capillary. So in a summary, tunica intima or interna consists of not epithelium, but endothelium, because this is inside there's a float. Epithelium is usually outside, which is a single layer of squamous, like scale-like epithelium resting on a basement membrane. And media is, or middle layer is composed of, you can see, smooth muscle cells and also elastic fibers here. And the external part called tunica adventitia or externa consists of, you can see, there's a lot of collagen. Collagen producing cells are fibroblasts. And so this is a collagen fiber. So now let's just review structure of vessel again. So artery, tunica intima contains endothelium that lines or the lumens of all vessels, and middle, the tunica media, smooth muscle cells and elastic fibers. And the outer side of the vessel, tunica adventitia, contains collagen fibers. So you can look at the vessel as a kind of pipe, but floppy pipe or elastic pipe. And for the flow to happen, we need a driving force. In this case, fluid flow, pressure. Pressure is the driving force. So here, one side, P1, P2. If P1 is higher than P2, the flow will pass from P1 towards P2. And at the same time, this blood vessel is like elastic. So inside the pressure is a vessel pressure, piece of V, while outside there's interstitial tissue. So interstitial tissue also has a pressure. So in order for the blood vessel not to collapse, which sometimes happens, this vascular pressure should be higher than outside. And so in terms of this vascular structure, we can define as a compliance, which means in terms of this delta P pressure gradient versus a volume changes. So if smaller pressure gradient, volume changes a lot, that we call more compliant. Okay. So aorta, which is the biggest artery, one of the biggest artery in our right after from outside of the heart is aorta is very compliant in terms of it actually keeps the high pressure. So it's role as a pressure reservoir. While the biggest vein, which is getting into the heart from throughout our body, is called vena cava, and that is also very compliant, but that compliance comes from these changes in volume. So that's called, the role is a volume reservoir of our heart. So this vessel anatomy, as I simplified, but there are different types of artery. For example, elastic artery, it's a very big artery, is very elastic because from the heart, it actually transmits that high pressures throughout our body. So it has to be very elastic. And there comes muscular artery, and at the smaller, arterial, and it goes down to capillary, and it collects as a vena and vein. And you can see endothelium is the same. There's a lot of elastic tissues in this arterial, artery side, and smooth muscles as well. And also fibrosis are much higher in artery. So next time we will see this part as more engineering point of view, vessel radius, resistance, and pressure drop. Thank you for your attention.